She hid behind a human for safety and whispered, "Dad." For the first time, Evan Carter had never thought he would feel fear like this. He had worked on the outer research station for almost 3 years, fixing broken machines, maintaining life support systems, and making sure the station ran smoothly. It was a quiet job, and Evan liked it that way. He was not a soldier, not a fighter, just a human who tried to do his job and keep people safe. Humans were not always the strongest species in the galaxy, but he had always believed that careful work and quick thinking could keep a person alive. Today, that belief was about to be tested. The station floated at the edge of a dangerous system, surrounded by empty space and small asteroids that occasionally rattled the outer shields. Beyond the station, alien fleets often passed, scanning for weak points, for resources, for any chance to take something that did not belong to them. Most species ignored the station. Most days were quiet. Today was not one of those days. Evan was walking through Corridor C7, carrying a set of tools for a routine repair on one of the hydroponic units. He liked the hydroponics section. It reminded him of Earth in a small way. Green plants, fresh oxygen, the smell of wet soil. He paused to look at a small patch of blue flowers growing under artificial lights. A small alien child was crouched next to them, trying to touch the petals carefully. "Careful," Evan said gently. "They are delicate." The child looked up at him with large golden eyes. Her skin was pale lavender and her small hands shook slightly. She was thin, far too thin for her age, and her clothes hung loose on her small frame. I like flowers," she whispered. Evan smiled, bending down to her level. "They like you too. They can feel if someone is kind." The girl, whose name was Maya, smiled faintly and returned to touching the petals. She had been living on the station for only a few weeks. Her parents had died in a trade dispute gone violent, and the station authorities had taken her in for safety. Most of the adults were busy with work, and most of the other children had families to keep them company. Maya wandered alone, quiet and watchful, too afraid to trust anyone fully. Evan noticed this and had taken it upon himself to check on her sometimes. He was not required to, and he knew the other humans might think it strange that a grown man took an interest in a small alien girl who had lost her family. But something about her reminded him of his younger sister, who had died years ago in a small accident back on Earth. Evan had never forgiven himself for not being there, and he saw a chance to protect Maya where he had once failed. He stood up and dusted off his hands. "I need to finish the repairs. Stay here, okay?" Maya nodded, but she did not move. Evan gave her a reassuring smile and walked down the corridor toward the hydroponics section. The lights flickered as he passed through the maintenance hatch. It was an old station, and power surges were common. He carried his tools carefully, always double-checking that nothing fell or broke. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the corridor. Evan stopped, listening. It was a sound he had never heard before on the station. The vibration ran through the metal walls, making the lights flicker violently. He felt a sudden chill run down his spine. "What the?" he muttered, gripping the handrail along the wall. The station's intercom system crackled to life. "Attention! Attention! All personnel! Unknown fleet approaching. Take shelter immediately." Evan froze. The announcement was calm but urgent. It was meant to prevent panic, but it did not prevent fear. He knew this sound. The warning tones had been heard before on the emergency drills, but now the tone carried a real weight. Drills were practice. This was real. He looked back toward Maya. She had not moved. Her eyes were wide, staring at the flickering lights. The rumble grew louder and the corridor shook again. Something large was hitting the outer shields. The station trembled, metal groaning under the impact. Evan ran back toward her, his tools clattering to the floor. "Maya, come with me," he shouted. She did not move. Fear had frozen her. Evan grabbed her small arm gently but firmly. "Come on, we need to go now. It's not safe." Finally, she moved, holding tightly to his hand. The smallness of her body against his felt fragile like glass. Evan tried not to panic, though his own heart raced. He guided her down the corridors, following the emergency lights that led to the nearest safe zone. Around them, chaos was starting. Other aliens and humans were running, shouting, some crying. A few tried to carry bags or personal items, forgetting that their lives were at risk. Evan ignored them. The only focus he had was Maya. She stayed close to him, hiding behind him instinctively. They reached the main junction where station security had set up barricades. Officer Olivia Grant waved at them, shouting orders to everyone. "Get to the shelters. Move." Evan kept his arm around Maya, leading her past the barricade. The rumble grew louder. Outside the reinforced windows, he saw the first glimpses of the attackers. Dark ships, sleek and jagged, were moving fast. They had weapons mounted, firing at the station's shields. Some of the shields flickered under the energy impacts, casting the corridors in brief bursts of red and green light. Maya whimpered and pressed herself closer to Evan. He bent slightly, putting his forehead near hers. "It's going to be okay." "Stay close to me," he said, trying to sound calm. He knew it might not be okay. Humans were not naturally strong compared to many of the alien species here. The attackers looked deadly, trained, and merciless. The station defenses would hold for only so long. Evan's mind raced, trying to think of a plan. There was no time to run to the escape pods. They would be targeted next. The shelters were the only immediate safety. As they moved deeper into the station, the lights flickered again, and the floor trembled under a heavy impact. Somewhere behind them, a distant explosion echoed, followed by the screams of terrified workers. Evan tightened his grip on Maya. Her small fingers gripped his jacket, almost painfully tight. "I'm not going to leave you," Evan whispered. He knew she did not fully understand the words, but she seemed to feel the meaning. Around them, the station personnel were moving like a river of panic, some running, some frozen. A group of alien technicians huddled together, their voices high-pitched and fearful. Evan ignored them. Every step mattered. They reached a large corridor intersection where the walls were reinforced, designed to act as a temporary shelter in case of breach. Olivia Grant was there, motioning for people to hurry. Evan led Maya forward. The corridor doors were closing automatically, but not fast enough. He had to push through, keeping an eye on the strange shapes moving past the windows. One ship scraped the outer hull of the station. Sparks flew from the exterior, and the whole section shuddered violently. Evan almost stumbled but kept moving. Maya stumbled behind him, and he steadied her, lifting her slightly to prevent her from falling. Finally, they reached the temporary shelter room. The doors closed behind them with a heavy clang. The room was crowded, filled with frightened humans and aliens. Evan put Maya down gently, kneeling so she could see him. She clung to him, hiding her face in his chest. "You're safe here for now," Evan said softly. His voice was calm, but inside his heart raced. He had no idea how long the station could hold, no idea if reinforcements were coming. He only knew he had to keep this small alien alive, because she had nowhere else to go. Maya lifted her head slightly, peeking at him through the strands of her hair. She whispered a word barely audible, almost a breath. "Dad," Evan froze. His mind reeled. She had not said that word before, had never spoken it to anyone. The sound of it in this room, surrounded by fear and chaos, felt like a small miracle. He bent down and hugged her carefully, whispering, I will protect you." Outside, the station groaned as another explosion shook the hull. The lights flickered. The attackers were still out there, still waiting, still striking. But for Evan, in that moment, the world narrowed down to one small alien girl who trusted him, hiding behind him in fear, whispering a single word that would change everything. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know if they would survive. But he knew one thing: he would not leave her side. Not now, not ever. And so, in the dim light of the shelter, amidst the trembling walls and terrified faces, Evan Carter made a silent promise to a small lavender-skinned alien child. No matter what came, he would protect her, and she would never face the darkness alone the shelter was crowded in. Noisy. The small room was filled with humans and aliens alike, huddled together, whispering nervously. The lights flickered occasionally, and the walls vibrated with the sound of impacts from outside. Evan Carter kept Maya close, crouching next to her so she could see him. Her small hands gripped his jacket, trembling, and he held her gently, rubbing her back to calm her. "It's going to be okay," he whispered again. He knew the words were simple, but in this moment they mattered more than anything else. Maya looked at him, her golden eyes wide, trusting him completely, and for a moment Evan felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with fear. It was responsibility, courage, and something like hope. Outside, the station's outer hull groaned under the repeated impacts of the alien ships. The attackers were relentless, firing weapons designed to punch through metal. Energy flares lit up the windows, painting the shelter in shifting shades of red and green. Distant alarms echoed through the station, warning of breaches and fires. People whispered in panic, some crying, some shaking. Evan ignored them all, his focus entirely on keeping Maya calm and safe. An officer, Olivia Grant, moved through the room, checking that everyone was accounted for. She was calm, professional, but her eyes betrayed concern. When she saw Evan kneeling with Maya, she nodded at him. "You're doing the right thing," she said softly before moving on to check another corner. Evan looked down at Maya. "Do you understand what's happening?" he asked. She shook her head. I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," he admitted. "But that's okay. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you care." Maya pressed her face against his chest, and he hugged her closer. The shelter trembled as another explosion shook the station, and a panel on the ceiling rattled loose, falling to the floor with a loud crash. Some of the aliens screamed, startled, but Evan held Maya steady, whispering, "Stay with me. Don't look away." Time seemed to stretch. Minutes passed like hours, each impact from outside making the walls quiver, each alarm a reminder that danger was real and near. Evan tried to think of a plan. The shelter could hold for only so long. The attackers would not stop until the station was crippled or abandoned. "What can we do?" Maya asked quietly. Evan shook his head. "I don't know everything, but right now we wait. We stay together. When it's safe, we move." He noticed a small group of alien children near the far wall, alone and crying. They had no one to hold them, no protector. Evan's heart ached. If he could, he would gather them all, shield them, and keep them alive. But there were too many, and he was only one person. All he could do was Maya. The rumble outside grew louder. The attackers were drilling through the outer shields faster now. Small fires had started in other sections, sending smoke into the ventilation system. The station's emergency systems were working overtime, but the humans and aliens in the shelter could hear the chaos growing louder. A human engineer, Luke, tried to calm the room. "We have to stay calm. Panicking won't help anyone." His voice was firm but faltering. Some people nodded, but most were too scared to listen. Evan didn't argue, he simply kept Maya close, whispering, "Don't listen to the noise. Listen to me. Stay with me." Maya looked at him and nodded, gripping his jacket tighter. She had started to repeat the word "Dad" occasionally, almost as if saying it gave her strength. Evan's chest tightened every time she did. He had never thought a single word could feel so heavy with meaning. Suddenly, the shelter doors rattled violently. Everyone froze. The outer hull had taken another hit, and the vibrations traveled through the entire station. Olivia Grant shouted for everyone to move back from the doors, fearing a breach. Evan instinctively put his body in front of Maya. The instinct was raw, human, and protective. She hid behind him, her small body pressed against his, shaking. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. "Don't move." A distant explosion shook the walls again. Dust fell from the ceiling. People screamed. Some aliens began to panic completely, running around in circles trying to find exits. Evan stayed crouched, his arms wrapped protectively around Maya, whispering soft, meaningless words to keep her calm. He could not fight the attackers physically. He was human, fragile, but he could be her shield, even if only morally and emotionally. After what felt like hours, a voice came over the intercom. "Station security, this is Olivia Grant. All personnel proceed to secondary shelters if you are able. Remain calm and follow instructions. Repeat, secondary shelters now." Evan looked at Maya. "We have to move," he said. "I will protect you." Maya looked at him with wide eyes. "But it's scary," she said. "I know," he said, "but I am here. I will not let anything happen to you." He helped her to her feet. The shelter was crowded and he had to move carefully, weaving between panicked aliens and humans. Some pushed past them, screaming. Evan kept his arm around Maya, guiding her through the chaos. She kept hiding behind him, her small hands gripping his jacket, whispering "Dad" again and again. The secondary shelter was further down the corridor, past sections that were already damaged. Smoke filled the air in some places, and sparks fell from broken panels. Evan led Maya carefully, ducking under low-hanging debris and avoiding loose wiring that sparked with energy. Suddenly, a small group of attackers appeared on a viewport nearby. Their shapes were sharp, alien, and terrifying. They seemed to scan the corridor, their energy weapons glowing briefly. Evan froze, holding Maya close. She hid behind him completely, her face pressed against his chest. The attackers did not enter. They moved on quickly, but the moment left a heavy silence in the air. Evan whispered, "Stay close. Don't look." Maya nodded, not daring to speak. Finally, they reached the secondary shelter. The doors closed behind them with a heavy clang, sealing them off from the chaos outside. Inside, it was crowded but calmer. The room was reinforced and had emergency supplies: water, food, blankets. People were settling in, though fear was still evident in every face. Evan sat down with Maya on his lap, holding her tightly. She clung to him, whispering softly. He could feel her small body trembling. He whispered back, "You're safe. I promise." As the hours passed, Evan tried to keep everyone calm. He helped a few aliens find blankets, guided humans to sit safely away from windows, and kept an eye on the children. But his focus remained on Maya. She spoke little, but every now and then she would look up at him and say, "Dad." The word carried more weight than any weapon, more power than any shield. It reminded him of why he had to survive, why he had to be strong. Outside, the station was under attack. Distant explosions shook the hall, sending vibrations through the shelter. The emergency lights flickered, casting the room in brief shadows of green and red. The attackers were relentless. The station systems worked tirelessly to repair minor damages, but the humans and aliens inside knew the danger was far from over. Evan thought about the station, about the people, about the small alien girl in his arms. He knew they could not last forever if the attackers breached the hull completely. Escape pods might not work if the power went out, and the outer ships were already patrolling the area. He needed a plan, but he also needed to keep Maya calm. Panic could paralyze them both. He whispered to her again, "I will protect you. No matter what happens, you stay with me." Maya nodded, clutching him tightly. "Dad," she said softly, almost like a prayer. The word echoed in Evan's mind. It gave him strength he did not know he had. He was human, not a soldier, not trained for battle, but he realized that humans had something different. They had courage, determination, and a stubbornness that no attacker could easily break. He would stand for those who could not defend themselves. He would be the shield for Maya and for anyone else who needed him. The night passed slowly. Every sound from outside made the shelter tense. Each impact sent vibrations through the floor. Evan never let go of Maya. He whispered continuously, telling her stories, making up songs, anything to distract her from the fear that surrounded them. Other humans noticed, some offering him small nods of respect. Even aliens seemed to glance at him differently, realizing that humans could stand firm in ways others might not expect. As dawn approached, the outer hull trembled one final time before a period of silence fell. The attackers had withdrawn for the moment, retreating to regroup. The station was battered but still standing. Inside the shelter, the survivors exhaled collectively, some crying, some laughing softly in relief. Evan held Maya, feeling the small weight of her in his arms, her trust in him complete. He realized that the battle was not over. The attackers could return at any time. The station was still damaged. But for now, he had kept one small life safe. One small alien who had called him Dad for the first time. And in that moment, he understood something profound. Even in the darkest moments, humans could be a beacon of hope. Courage was not about strength. It was about standing when others could not. It was about protecting those who needed it most. Maya looked up at him, her golden eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. "Dad," she whispered again. Evan hugged her tightly, feeling a quiet determination grow inside him. He would not fail her. He would not let her fear consume her. He would be her shield, her protector, her family, no matter what the galaxy threw at them next. Outside, the station still trembled, still groaned under the scars of attack. But inside, Evan Carter and a small lavender-skinned girl named Maya sat together, safe for now, bound by trust and the quiet promise of protection. The humans around them began to murmur among themselves, realizing that even in this dangerous galaxy, one human could make a difference. One human could stand against fear, and in doing so, inspire hope in all who witnessed it. Evan's mind raced with the next steps, plans for repairs, ideas for survival, and ways to keep Maya safe. He would not leave the shelter until it was safe. He would keep her close, shield her, and guide her. The word Dad echoed in his ears, reminding him why courage mattered, why humans mattered. And so, in the shadow of destruction, amidst fear and uncertainty, Evan held Maya tightly, whispering soft reassurances, determined to face whatever came next. The day outside the shelter felt long and endless. Every sound of the station trembling made Evan's heart race. Though the attackers had temporarily retreated, the station was badly damaged. Sparks flew from exposed wires and small fires burned in some corridors. Smoke filled the air, carrying a sharp, choking smell. Evan stayed close to Maya, her small body pressed against his side. She had barely slept, and her golden eyes were heavy with fear and exhaustion. He knew he could not stay in the shelter forever. The station needed repairs, and the survivors needed help. More importantly, if they stayed, they would become easy targets if the attackers returned. Evan tried to think clearly. He was a civilian engineer, not a soldier, but humans had a way of surviving in impossible situations. He had to find a way to protect Maya and keep the station alive long enough for help to arrive. "Maya," he whispered, kneeling down to her level. "We have to move soon. It's not safe here for too long." She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "But it's scary outside." "I know," he said softly, "but staying here won't make it better. We have to be brave even when it's hard, and I will be with you the whole time." She nodded slowly. Evan could feel her small hands gripping his jacket tighter. She whispered the word Dad again. It gave him strength, made him focus. He would not let her down. Not now, not ever. The shelter doors opened and Olivia Grant stepped in, accompanied by a few security personnel. They were careful, scanning for any immediate threats. "We need volunteers," she said. "Some sections are damaged and we need people to help secure them. It's dangerous, but staying put won't keep anyone alive." Evan's stomach tightened. He wanted to volunteer, but he also had Maya to protect. Yet if they did not try to help, the station might collapse, leaving everyone trapped. He looked down at Maya, who was hiding behind his legs. She looked small and fragile, but her trust in him gave him courage. "I'll go," he said. Olivia raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Bring the girl with you. Keep her close." Evan nodded, hugging Maya tightly. "We'll be careful," he whispered. "Trust me." The corridors were worse than he expected. Panels hung from the ceiling, sparking. Smoke drifted through the air, making it hard to breathe. The floor shook with every vibration from the damaged hull. Evan guided Maya carefully, using his body as a shield, holding her close. She pressed herself against him, muttering "Dad" over and over, as if saying it made her stronger. They reached a junction where several other humans and aliens were working to repair a broken energy conduit. Sparks flew as a technician tried to reconnect the system. Suddenly, a section of the ceiling collapsed nearby, sending debris flying. Evan acted instinctively, pushing Maya behind him and shielding her with his body. A metal panel struck him in the shoulder, but he gritted his teeth and held her steady. "It's okay," he whispered. "Stay still. You're safe with me." Maya trembled but did not cry. She pressed herself closer to him. Evan could feel her small heart beating rapidly. He realized that humans had a way of standing firm even when everything around them was falling apart. He could not fight like a soldier, but his presence alone gave Maya courage. They moved deeper into the corridor, helping where they could. Evan guided technicians, held doors open, and carried small equipment when needed. Each time Maya whispered "Dad," it reminded him why he could not give up. The station depended on every small effort, and he was determined to make each one count. Suddenly, the station shook violently. A loud explosion echoed through the halls. The outer hull had been struck again. Sparks rained down, and a section of the corridor filled with smoke. Humans and aliens screamed, trying to find cover. Evan dropped to the floor, pressing Maya against his chest. She buried her face in his jacket, whispering "Dad" again and again. Through the smoke, Evan saw the attackers outside, their ships gliding along the station's surface. Their weapons fired intermittently, testing the shields. He realized they had returned, more aggressive than before. The station's energy levels were dropping and the backup systems were struggling. If they did not act quickly, the station could be lost. "Stay with me," Evan whispered, gripping Maya tightly. He pushed forward, navigating through the damaged corridor. Other humans and aliens followed him, inspired by his courage. Even in fear, his calm presence and determination made them feel safer. He was not the strongest, but he was the anchor they needed. They reached another section of the station, where the walls had been breached slightly. The air pressure was dropping, and alarms blared. Technicians worked frantically to seal the breach. Evan knelt beside one of them, helping to secure a panel. Sparks flew, and a small fire ignited nearby. He grabbed a nearby extinguisher, putting out the flames quickly. Maya watched him with wide eyes, still whispering "Dad." Evan smiled faintly, though his body ached from the previous impacts. He realized that humans were not just about strength. They were about quick thinking, courage, and protecting others when it mattered most. He could not fight the attackers directly, but he could hold the line, keep people safe, and save lives. Another explosion shook the station. Debris fell from the ceiling and the floor trembled violently. Evan shielded Maya, his body pressed against hers. She whispered "Dad" again, and he realized that her trust was a force stronger than fear itself. He would not let her down. As they moved through the damaged sections, they found more survivors, humans and aliens alike, trapped behind debris. Evan and a small team worked together to free them. Each time he lifted a piece of metal or helped someone climb over rubble, Maya held his hand, her small fingers gripping his tightly. She whispered "Dad" repeatedly, as if the word itself gave her courage. By late afternoon, they had reached a central control room. The room was damaged but functional. Energy readouts flickered, showing the station's weakened systems. Evan looked around, realizing that the attackers were trying to cripple the station slowly. They were not just random raiders, they had strategy. The station's survival depended on every repair and every act of courage. "We need to stabilize the main systems," Evan said, speaking to the technicians. "If we can restore power to the shields and the life support, we'll have a better chance." The technicians nodded, and Evan got to work. He crawled under panels, rewired circuits, and guided the human and alien engineers through the repairs. Maya stayed close, handing him small tools when he asked, her hands shaking but determined. Every time she whispered "Dad," he felt a surge of strength. He would not fail her. Hours passed. The station system slowly came back online, shields stabilizing, life support functioning at minimal levels. The room was filled with exhausted humans and aliens, but hope had returned. Evan looked down at Maya, who had curled up against him briefly, exhausted but still alert. She whispered "Dad" softly, and he hugged her tightly. "You did well," he said softly. "We're not out of danger yet, but we're safer than before." Outside, the attackers had not retreated completely. Their ships patrolled the station, firing occasionally, testing the defenses. Evan knew the next wave could come at any moment. But he also knew that humans had a way of standing firm, of protecting those who could not protect themselves. He had already inspired others in the station to act, to fight back in small ways, and that gave him hope. Maya looked up at him, her golden eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. "Dad, we can do this," she asked, her voice small. Evan smiled, though he was tired and sore. "Yes," he said firmly. "We can. As long as we stay together, we can face anything." The station trembled again, and sparks flew from nearby panels. But inside the central control room, surrounded by humans and aliens working together, Evan Carter held Maya tightly. She whispered "Dad" once more, and he knew that courage was not just about fighting. It was about standing firm, protecting those who trusted you, and never giving up, no matter how impossible the situation seemed. As night fell over the station, the attackers' ships glinted in the distance. Evan prepared for the possibility of another assault. He checked the systems, guided technicians, and kept Maya close. She slept briefly in his arms, exhausted from the day, still murmuring "Dad" in her sleep. He realized that the word had become more than just a sound. It was a symbol of trust, courage, and hope. Humans were not the strongest, but they were resilient. They could face overwhelming odds and still stand firm. And Evan knew that, for Maya, he would do everything to prove that humans could be heroes, even without weapons, even without armor. He whispered softly as he held her, "I will protect you, Maya. No matter what comes next, you will not face it alone." And in that quiet, tense moment, amidst sparks, smoke, and distant explosions, a small human engineer and a fragile alien child reminded everyone in the room what courage truly meant. To stand firm for others, to protect the helpless, and to act with hope when the world around. "You seemed broken." The station trembled as if it were alive, groaning under the weight of the repeated attacks. Evan Carter stood in the central control room, keeping one hand on Maya's small shoulder. She clung to him, her golden eyes wide, still whispering "Dad" every few seconds. The word had become her anchor, and Evan understood that his role was no longer just as a helper. He was her shield, her protector, her family in a galaxy that had shown her only danger. Outside the reinforced windows, alien ships glided along the station's surface. Their shapes were sharp, angular, and threatening. Energy weapons glowed intermittently, testing the station's weakened shields. The lights in the control room flickered with each impact, sending long shadows across the faces of exhausted humans and aliens working to repair the station's systems. Evan took a deep breath, scanning the readouts on the consoles. Oxygen levels were stable but low. Shield strength was recovering slowly, but the outer hull had multiple weak points. The attackers were strategic. They were not here to destroy randomly. They were testing, probing, and waiting for the station to make a mistake. "We need to hold them off," he said firmly to Olivia Grant, who was kneeling at a console nearby. If we can keep the shields up, the station can survive until reinforcements arrive. Olivia nodded. I know, but we're low on power. We can't keep the shields at full strength for long. Evan frowned. He looked at Maya, who was still pressed close. Stay here, he whispered, kneeling to her level. I need to go outside for a moment. I'll be back. Maya's eyes widened in fear. Outside, but it's dangerous. I know, he said softly, but I have to do this. I'll keep you safe. You wait here with Olivia, okay? She hesitated but finally nodded, gripping his jacket. Dad, she whispered. Evan felt a surge of determination. He would not let her down. He moved toward the maintenance hatch that led to the outer sections of the station. Sparks flew from broken panels along the corridor, and the floor trembled with every distant explosion. Evan carefully navigated the debris, checking each step. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This was not a drill. This was real. Every decision could mean life or death. He reached the outer section where the hull had been weakened. The metal groaned under pressure, and small fires burned around broken conduits. Evan examined the damage, realizing that if the breaches were not reinforced, the attackers could penetrate the station completely. He started working, using tools and spare panels to seal the gaps. Sparks flew, and he had to duck quickly as a loose piece of metal shifted dangerously. The attackers' ships hovered above, scanning, but for some reason they did not fire immediately. Evan could not guess why. They were cautious, patient, and relentless. Minutes passed like hours. Each repair required careful attention. Evan worked quickly, aware that one mistake could cost him his life or the safety of the entire station. His hands were scraped and burned from sparks and hot metal, but he ignored the pain. He could not afford to stop. Not now. Not ever. Inside the central control room, Maya whispered "Dad" repeatedly. Olivia Grant glanced at her and smiled faintly, realizing that the child's trust in Evan gave him strength beyond what anyone could measure. The human engineer had become more than just a worker. He was a symbol of courage. Suddenly, one of the attackers fired a beam directly at the section Evan was working on. Sparks and smoke erupted as the energy struck the hull. Evan dove to the side, protecting himself, but the force of the blast bent part of the metal panel he had just installed. He cursed under his breath, pushing the damaged piece back into place. His hands were shaking, but he ignored it. He knew that hesitation could be fatal. The attackers were relentless. They would not stop until the station was crippled. Back in the shelter, Maya held her hands to her mouth, whispering "Dad, Dad, Dad." Her voice trembled, but she did not move. She trusted Evan completely, and that trust gave him strength he did not know he had. Evan worked through another blast, using a spare panel to reinforce the section. His hands were cut and scorched, but he kept moving. Every small action mattered. Every repaired section of the hull was another chance for the station to survive. After several tense minutes, he stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. The section was stable for now, but the attackers were still out there, and he knew they would strike again. He had to move to the next weak point. He climbed through the maintenance hatch to another outer corridor. The station groaned under the repeated impacts, and sparks flew from exposed conduits. Evan's heart raced, but he kept going. He had a mission, and Maya's whispered word "Dad" echoed in his mind, giving him focus and courage. As he worked on the next section, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. One of the attackers had landed a small boarding craft on the station's surface. Evan froze, realizing they intended to board and sabotage the station from inside. He ducked behind a panel, watching as a tall, alien figure emerged from the craft. It had sharp limbs and glowing eyes, moving with precise and deadly purpose. Evan knew he could not fight it directly. He was human, fragile, and unarmed. But he had to buy time. He grabbed a loose panel and threw it toward the intruder. It clanged against the metal and distracted the alien for a moment. Evan used the chance to move to a better position, closer to the weak point he needed to repair. Sparks flew as the alien recalibrated, scanning for movement. Evan held his breath, moving carefully, repairing the breach. Back in the shelter, Maya had hidden behind Olivia, whispering "Dad" continuously. Every word seemed to travel through the station, carrying a strange strength. The humans and aliens around her watched in awe as the small girl's trust gave courage to the man outside. Evan finished the repair just as the alien noticed him. It lunged forward, sharp limbs extended. Evan ducked and rolled, grabbing a nearby tool as a makeshift weapon. He could not hurt the creature, but he could slow it down. He swung the tool, hitting the alien and causing it to stagger. The creature hissed and adjusted, moving faster. Evan realized he could not hold it off forever. He ran to another section, leading the alien away from critical systems. Sparks and smoke filled the corridor as the creature pursued him. He used every skill he had, every ounce of human instinct to stay ahead. He reached a hatch that led back toward the control room. Using a small panel, he blocked the intruder temporarily. It shrieked, pounding against the metal, but Evan slipped through. He moved quickly, returning to the control room. Inside, Maya looked up as he appeared, her golden eyes filled with relief. "Dad," she whispered. Evan hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of exhaustion and fear lift slightly. She had been safe, and for a moment the world felt less dangerous. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." Olivia and the other personnel watched him, amazed. The human had faced an alien intruder, repaired critical systems under fire, and returned with the child safe. His courage inspired everyone. Humans were not the strongest, but they had a way of standing firm when others could not. Evan knelt beside Maya, holding her small hands. "We're not done yet," he said softly. "They will come again, but we can face it together." Maya nodded, her small voice whispering, "Dad." The word was simple, but it carried more weight than any weapon. It reminded Evan why he had to be strong, why he had to survive. He had a life to protect, a child who trusted him completely. The station shook again as another wave of attackers fired on the outer hull. Alarms blared and lights flickered. Evan stood, ready to guide the technicians, ready to act wherever he was needed. He knew he could not fight all the attackers alone, but he could protect Maya, and that was enough to keep him going. Hours passed in tense silence, punctuated by explosions and impacts. Evan moved through the control room, coordinating repairs, checking oxygen levels, and keeping Maya close. Each time she whispered "Dad," he felt renewed determination. The station might be damaged, the attackers relentless, but humans had a stubbornness that could not be broken easily. Finally, as the first faint light of the station's artificial dawn spread through the windows, there was a pause in the attacks. The hull was damaged, but the station held. The outer shield stabilized and the survivors began to catch their breath. Evan knelt with Maya, holding her close. "We survived this wave," he whispered, "and we will survive the next, together." She looked up at him, tired but trusting, whispering "Dad" once more. Evan smiled faintly, feeling a quiet pride. Humans were not invincible, but they could be courageous, protective, and unbreakable in the face of fear. He would continue to stand, to shield, to protect Maya, no matter what came next. And in that fragile moment of calm, amidst smoke, sparks, and the wounded station, Evan Carter understood the truth of human courage. It was not about strength or weapons. It was about standing when others could not, protecting those who depended on you, and never letting go, even when the universe seemed against you. Maya's whispered word echoed in his mind, carrying hope, trust, and determination. "Dad," and with that word, he knew he could face anything the galaxy sent their way. The station trembled again, louder than ever. The alien attackers had returned, more organized this time, firing continuously at the outer hull. Sparks flew from damaged panels, and alarms screamed through the corridors. Humans and aliens huddled in shelters or ran to repair sections as best they could. Evan Carter held Maya close, her small hands clutching his jacket. She whispered "Dad" again and again, each word like a spark of courage in the darkness. Evan's mind raced. He had guided the station through previous attacks, repaired critical systems, and protected Maya from direct danger. But this wave was different. The attackers had learned, adapted, and were now striking at multiple points at once. If the station fell, everyone inside would be trapped, or worse. Evan knew he could not rely solely on luck or strength. He had to act, and he had to act fast. "We need to stabilize the main power grid," he said, his voice firm, addressing Olivia Grant and the remaining technicians. "If we can restore full power, the shields will hold. It's our best chance." Olivia nodded, her face tense. "We'll follow your lead." Evan looked down at Maya. "Stay here," he whispered. "I'll come back for you, I promise." Her eyes widened, fear and trust mixing in equal measure. "Dad, don't leave me," she whispered. He knelt, brushing her hair from her face. "I'm not going anywhere," he said softly. "Just stay close to Olivia and I'll be back soon." He moved quickly through the corridors, dodging sparks, smoke, and debris. The floor shook violently with each impact. In one section, a small fire blocked the path. Evan grabbed a nearby extinguisher, putting it out carefully, ignoring the pain in his burned hands. He had learned over the past days that humans were not the fastest or strongest, but they were stubborn, resilient, and resourceful. And right now, that stubbornness would save lives. He reached the main power conduit. It was damaged, wires exposed, panels bent. Sparks flew every time he touched a circuit. He took a deep breath and began repairs. Each connection had to be precise. One mistake could cause a short, a fire, or a complete power failure. Evan worked quickly but carefully, sweat running down his face. Suddenly, the corridor shook violently. An alien boarding craft had landed nearby. A tall, sharp-limbed creature emerged, its glowing eyes scanning the area. Evan froze, knowing he could not fight it directly. His hands trembled, but he held his ground. The creature lunged at him, fast and deadly. Instinct took over. Evan grabbed a loose metal panel and threw it at the intruder. It hit with a loud clang, causing the creature to stagger. He seized the moment, diving under the main conduit, continuing his repairs while the alien struggled to regain balance. Sparks flew around him, but he ignored them. He had to finish the job. Inside the control room, Maya and Olivia heard the distant sounds of chaos. Metal clanging, sparks, alarms, and a low, strange hiss from the intruder outside. Maya clung to Olivia, whispering "Dad" softly, hoping he would be okay. She trusted him completely, and that trust gave Evan strength he did not know he had. After tense minutes, Evan completed the repair. The main power surged back to life. Lights flickered to full strength. The shield stabilized. He could hear the alarms outside cease temporarily as the attackers realized the station had regained strength. The station was not out of danger, but it had survived the worst of the assault. Evan allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but he knew he could not rest. He still had to make sure Maya was safe. He ran back through the corridors, dodging sparks and debris, guiding himself by memory. He finally reached the shelter where Maya waited. She looked up as he appeared, her golden eyes wide and filled with relief. "Dad," she whispered, running to him. He knelt, embracing her tightly. "I told you I'd come back," he said softly. "I'm here, you're safe now." Maya hid her face against his chest, whispering "Dad" repeatedly. Evan held her, feeling the weight of everything they had survived. The attackers had not been defeated, but for now, the humans and aliens on the station were alive. They had hope. Olivia approached them. "You did it," she said, nodding at Evan. "The repairs, the shields, you saved a lot of lives." Evan shook his head. "We saved lives," he said. "Together, humans and aliens, everyone who stayed and helped, that's what matters." Maya peeked up at him, her small voice trembling. "Dad, are we okay?" Evan smiled faintly. "We're okay for now," he said, "but we have to stay alert. They could come back." Hours passed. The station was quiet for the first time in days. Humans and aliens worked together to repair damage, share food and water, and comfort those who had been frightened. Evan stayed close to Maya, guiding her, reassuring her. Every time she whispered "Dad," he felt renewed strength. Finally, a distant calm signal arrived. Reinforcements were on the way. The attackers had not expected the station to survive so long, and now help was coming. Evan allowed himself a small smile. They were not safe yet, but they were not alone. He led Maya to a window, showing her the distant ships approaching. Her eyes widened in wonder and relief. "Dad, they're here," she whispered. "Yes," Evan said softly. "We made it this far. Now we can finish this together." The attackers noticed the incoming reinforcements and began to retreat. Their ships withdrew, firing occasionally but not landing on the station again. Evan and the technicians continued to strengthen the shields and repair the hull, making sure no weak points remained. Maya stayed close, whispering "Dad" softly. Evan realized that her trust, her belief in him, had been the driving force behind everything. Humans were not the strongest in the galaxy, but they had courage, determination, and the ability to inspire hope in others. He had proven it not with weapons, but with persistence, care, and selflessness. As the alien ships disappeared into the distance, the station finally began to stabilize fully. Power systems were restored, life support was functioning at normal levels, and the remaining survivors began to breathe easier. Evan held Maya tightly, whispering reassurances. She had survived the horrors, and she had done so because she trusted him completely. Olivia approached again, smiling faintly. "You were incredible," she said. "Humans, sometimes they surprise you." Evan shrugged, though he felt tired and worn. "I just did what anyone would do," he said softly. "I kept her safe, that's all." Maya looked up at him, her golden eyes shining. "Dad, you saved me," she whispered. Evan hugged her tightly, feeling the power of the word, the weight of trust, and the importance of being there for someone who relied on you completely. The survivors began to leave the shelters, moving to repaired sections of the station. Humans and aliens exchanged stories of courage and survival. Evan guided Maya through the corridors, careful to avoid damaged areas. She held his hand tightly, whispering "Dad" with every step. They reached a safe observation deck overlooking the station's exterior. The stars shone brightly beyond, and the distant reinforcements moved closer. Evan held Maya, feeling a quiet pride and relief. The battle was over for now. The station had survived. Lives had been saved. And most importantly, one small alien girl had found someone to trust completely. "Dad," Maya whispered again, pressing her face against his chest. "Thank you." Evan smiled, kissing the top of her head gently. "No, Maya, thank you for trusting me." That's what made all of this possible. For the first time in days, Evan allowed himself to rest slightly. The station was secure, the attackers gone for now, and the survivors were safe. Humans had shown what courage could do. Evan realized that even small actions, small acts of care and bravery, could change the outcome of impossible situations. Maya held his hand, and he knew that he would protect her no matter what. The galaxy could throw anything at them, but as long as they were together, they could survive. The word "Dad" had become more than a sound. It was a symbol of trust, protection, and hope. As the reinforcements docked and the station personnel began to stabilize operations fully, Evan looked down at Maya. "We made it," he said softly. "We survived." Maya smiled faintly, exhausted but happy. "Dad," she whispered one last time, holding his hand tightly. Evan hugged her gently. He knew the galaxy was still dangerous. More challenges would come, but for now they had survived together. He had protected her, and she had trusted him completely. That trust had given him the strength to face impossible odds. And in that quiet moment, amidst the damaged station and the distant stars, Evan Carter understood the true meaning of courage. It was not about weapons or armor, not about strength or skill. It was about standing firm when others could not, protecting those who depended on you, and inspiring hope even in the darkest moments. Maya whispered "Dad" one final time, and Evan held her close, knowing that together they could face anything the galaxy would send their way. The station was safe, the survivors were alive, and humanity had shown its strength, not in violence but in courage, care, and determination. Evan had become more than a human engineer. He had become a shield, a protector, and a symbol of hope for one small alien girl who had whispered the word that changed everything: Dad. And as the lights stabilized, the fires were extinguished, and the reinforcements began their work, Evan Carter held Maya tightly, knowing that this was only the beginning of their journey. But together, nothing could break them.